as a musician?
Huh?
Don't look over there. Did you quit as the musician?
Had a rough weekend. Really good. I was so tired yesterday.
Okay.
I'll get back on
And my very first fruit of desire was fine tunes with each thrust take a sight. In the pressure and deep feels in my vaginal walls, I become like a volcano, ready to erupt.
Get paranoid.
Height of my orgasm.
Oh, right, yeah.
No pain I do has ever come close to this lovely fire. Fill my soul with so much joy, for you, my dear, are my heart's desire. Oh,
That is hot. I'm just saying.
Well,
Yeah.
Yes,
No
yes.
matter how much Mark protests.
Yes, the first has to.
no need to turn that down.
Okay, so we are going down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you are on.
Good evening, everyone, and you're listening to the Intimacy Chronicles. I am your host, Queen Jackie, and to my right,
Good evening, everyone. Richard's here. How's everyone? Hope everyone had a good weekend.
all right, you're Richard today.
Quiet storm.
Sometimes I have to remind him. To my far left in the corner,
Oh, is that me?
that would be you.
I'm just the guy pressing the buttons tonight.
He's the guy.
Are
pressing
you
the
with us
buttons.
tonight?
I'm going to sleep. I haven't slept in 2
That's Mr.
days.
For those of you who don't know, that's Mr. Sensational.
Not feeling
He's,
very
uh,
sensational today.
He's
Mr.
in charge of our
Absenteeism.
audio and visual.
And to my left, we're in for a treat tonight because I have Umar Marvin McDowell with us. He's Maryland's boxing legend. He's been inducted into the Maryland's Boxing Hall of Fame. That was a tidbit that I looked up on my own. Because I wanted to know what I was talking about and having you on here. I met Marvin probably, about a month ago?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and he's such a good brother and does so many amazing things in the community. He has an organization called Umar Boxing Program. And I'm going to shut up and I'm going to let Marvin talk because he has a lot to say, and I'm honored to have him with us tonight.
I'm honored to be here. And first of all, I'm Umar Marvin McDowell. I'm the founder, president, and executive director of Umar Boxing and Youth Development. No books before books. We're one of the first boxing programs possibly in the world with legitimate educational component where the boxing and the books are going on at the same time under one roof. You know, people don't really associate boxing and thinking, but to be a good boxer, you have to think. It's like having strategy, making a first move. It takes a thinking person to be a good boxer. So what we're trying to do is erase the stereotype that we do have on boxers, and they see these boxers in a different light. When they come in my program, I have a big gym area, then I have my office, and then I have a classroom with certified school teachers, computers, the whole 9 yards. You know, it's a very good program, and I recommend it to any family, you know, with kids that's trying to set them straight, get
Okay.
the discipline, and you know, it really works.
So why boxing?
Well, as far as what I do is amateur boxing. There's a stereotype that, you know, that you want to get hit upside the head, you want to get beat up, this and that, you know, but when you have the right person doing the training and stuff like that, you know, with me, I do safety.
Okay.
You know? Matter of fact, amateur boxing ranks 23rd as far as children's sports injuries. Most of the sports that are in school right now, the kid has a better chance of getting hurt than in boxing. You know, you might would think that it's that full contact, you know, but when you are competing, right, it's so safe that say like if you get dazed, the referee will look in your eyes, and if everything ain't right, they stop the fight. Or if you
Okay.
compete and get cut, or
Mhm.
get your nose busted or something like that, you know, they stop. You know, they
Okay.
think the kid's safety first.
Right.
You know, and even in the gym when I'm training the kids, I don't have all that old crazy going all out. You know, they work on their technique,
Mhm.
proper way to jab, throw right hand, hook, uppercut. You know, the basic fundamentals of it.
Mhm.
You know.
That's pretty amazing. And you have certified teachers, so education was big for you. Do the kids protest much when they first come on
Well,
board?
I'm saying they can protest all they want. You know, it's just the way it is. See, when they sign up, right,
Mhm.
the education and the boxing. So you can't have one without the other.
Right.
You know, then, you know, at times we have the parents, well, my kid here to box. You know, they're in the classroom. I said, well, it's evident that they need help. That's why they're in the classroom.
Right.
And how much protesting can somebody do to a boxing legend? You know,
Right.
you only can protest so much, but let's keep it real.
You don't want a left hook?
I mean, yeah, I'm looking at this man here. He looked like he can handle his business.
Oh
you know?
yeah. Oh definitely.
I'm a quiet lion.
Yeah.
Quiet line.
You are. Yeah. He's very mild mannered, but I love his willingness to help.
Yeah, at one time it was my job to hurt people,
Uh-huh.
you know. But now I just try to give back, you know, and let these kids see it as a help for them, because
Right.
a lot of kids are frustrated and angry, you know, and they need to express themselves. So
Mhm.
I put them in a situation they can express themselves legally,
Right.
right? Not get in trouble, not really hurt nobody, and get
Mhm.
rewarded for it. You know?
Right.
But
How can you be that?
But you know, you said something fascinating a minute ago. You said you know, like when you come into your gym and you kind of described it, you painted a real good picture.
Mhm.
There's a classroom, then there's parts where you work on your technique. Of course, there's probably a ring in there.
Mhm.
You know, a lot of people have a stereotype of boxing gyms as this gritty, grimy kind of
Mhm.
place,
Yeah.
but it sounds like you guys are. It don't sound that way at all.
Yeah.
So can you talk more about that?
Yeah, well, you know, like when you first come in,
Mm-hmm.
right, you see the boxing ring,
Right.
right? There's a nice little setup, but the most important, the heart of the program is the classroom,
Okay.
you know, and that's what I show off first, you know, because these kids, you know, they need to know that they gotta work to get in the boxing. So,
Yeah.
you know, like you gotta go to the classroom first before you come out to the boxing. So they know that firsthand, and I'm strict on that. And I don't care whether or not, you know, their parents want them in boxing. You can't have one without the other.
Right.
You know, because all these kids aren't going to turn out to be boxers.
Yeah.
So if you brush up on their education early and put them in that educational atmosphere, it won't be no problem them seeking higher education
Yeah.
after they finish school. See, this is a mental concept that I practice with.
Awesome. Can you talk more about the educational aspect? Like, for instance, do you go? Of course, there's school studies, but what
Yeah.
about the history of the sport? You know, and
Yeah,
that kind of
yeah.
thing. Because you know what? I think back. My dad's from Trinidad.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was young, coming up, you know, I literally asked my dad about, you know, I'm into football, I'm into baseball.
Mm-hmm.
He don't know nothing about baseball. He grew up watching cricket.
Uh-huh.
When I say football, he think it's soccer.
Yeah,
But the
yeah.
only sport that me and my dad could sit down and watch
It's boxing.
was boxing.
Yeah.
So that's where I associated boxing or watching. I mean, I'm talking about I grew up in the golden age.
Mm-hmm.
And we can go back and forth when the golden age, but the golden age was the 80s with Sugar
That's
Ray
right.
Leonard, Hearns. You
That's
had
right. Most of the Americans,
Vito Artefermo, all them guys, not just the big guys,
Right.
but he had some real
All weight
skillful
classes.
boxers all through the weight classes.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, it's I'm really enjoying myself, you know, talking to you because
Mhm.
boxing was a thing where it helped me connect with my dad.
Yeah.
But we would actually sit down and watch, you know. So how much of the history, you know, where these kids who never even heard of Vito Artefermo,
Mhm.
I don't know if I'm saying the name right, Alan Minter.
Mhm.
You know, these guys when Hagler beat him in England.
Legendary.
Yeah, and they started throwing garbage in the ring,
Mhm.
you know, and that kind of thing. How far back do you go? How do you introduce
Well,
them to the
what
movement?
I try to do, right now, I'm putting together this academic Olympic boxing history trivia challenge.
Okay,
Right?
awesome.
And it's on Maryland boxing history first, because a lot of people don't know Baltimore had the first African American world boxing champion.
Jack Johnson.
No.
Yeah.
No. His name was Joe Gans.
Mhm.
He was the first African American world boxing champion.
Heavyweight.
Nope, lightweight. He was the best
So
lightweight
Jack-
ever put the gloves on.
So Jack Johnson was the heavyweight.
Jack Johnson was the first African American heavyweight. This guy was the first African American champion in any sport. Because back during that time, they just was starting to develop baseball, basketball, football, and wrestling.
So what year are we talking?
We talking about
In the 1800s.
he was born in 1874.
Yeah.
He won the championship in 1902, and he held it in 1908. He holds the record for having the longest championship fight. 42 rounds.
42 rounds. Oh
He
my
boxed
God.
in the desert sun in Goldfield, Nevada. And he won on a technicality. The dude hit him low. And he won it from from the guy getting disqualified.
No, he was just
But
tired.
he gave the guy a rematch, and he knocked him out in the third round.
Okay. Wow.
Wow.
Now, see, back during that time, boxing and horse racing were the two top sports of the world. It was just starting to develop all the other sports. But Joe Gans was the first from Baltimore.
Wow. So in the turn of the century, 1900s, we had
Mhm.
a Baltimore. Probably back then, think about how Baltimore looked.
Yeah.
North Avenue was probably the border. You know,
Mhm.
Druid Hill Park was the
Mhm.
suburbs,
Yeah,
and you had, of course, you had segregations,
right.
and so you had a man in Baltimore who was able to gain notoriety as the
Right.
first champion or first professional champion
From America.
From America.
African American.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow.
And, he was a smart businessman, too. He had a hotel
Mm-hmm.
downtown Baltimore. You know where the main post office is?
Yes.
He had a hotel called the Goldfield Hotel.
Wow.
All the prominent blacks during that time used to come and visit. I know have you ever heard of U.B. Blake?
Yes.
He gave U.B. Blake his start. U.B. Blake was 19 years old, used to play in this hotel, which he lived in the hotel, and he had a state-of-the-art bar at that time in that
Wow.
hotel.
So you teaching the kids all this stuff?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Wow.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
And that's something, for Baltimore having the first African-American world boxing champion.
Yeah.
Joe Gans, he was the first black Baltimorean to buy a car. He bought a car in
So
1906.
let me ask you, how was his life after boxing? Any idea what did he end up or?
Well, he was a shrewd businessman. He ran that hotel.
Yeah.
He ran that hotel, and like when he passed away, he had over $100,000 estate. Now back during that time,
That was a lot of money.
like maybe $100 million.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
He was very shrewd businessman.
Okay, who's the second that came from Baltimore?
Let's see. That was Vincent Petway
I know that name.
Yeah, you're right.
from the Mac Lewis gym.
I'm
Yeah,
thinking Hasim
right.
Rockman.
Or
I'm thinking
no.
Hasim Rockman.
I know the history.
Okay,
Right.
okay. Look, I ain't gonna
So
I ain't
Mac's
gonna mess with
gym
you, man.
was
I ain't gonna
Broadway.
challenge you no more.
Yeah.
On Broadway. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
All right.
Vincent
The
Petway.
third one was Hasim Rockman,
Right.
and just lately, there's no one named Javante Tank
Yeah,
Davis.
I saw him.
And we have a female now. Just won it last week,
Wow.
named Franchon Cruz.
Yeah.
She's a junior super middleweight champ. She won the WBC super middleweight championship, and she has some connections with me. I started her off. She won multiple national championships with me, international championships, and she just won world title.
Yeah, I saw Tank. First time I saw him was the Mayweather fight, man. You
Yeah.
know, it's a shame that you know, it was some controversy, but he really got some skills.
Well, very talented fighter. I
Yeah.
watched him come up from the park.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I watch all those guys, like most of the guys that's fighting now that are champions. I was amongst them when they were, you know, little kids,
Yeah.
because I was
Yeah.
chosen as the head coach of the regional team. You know, we took the team to the nationals, and you know, we had my experience in this game is real deep,
Okay.
real deep. And these kids can learn a lot if they just listen.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Do you get any, because it sounds like there's some prerequisites, of course, the learning part, and all the stuff that's not fun. Because people don't realize, Jackie, that boxing, most of the preparation is outside the ring.
Oh, definitely.
Before you even step in, it's the
Right.
training and it's the preparation to it before you
Mhm.
even step foot in that ring.
Yeah.
So, you know, and of course, if it's a kid, they probably want to go in and start swinging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's all it's
So
about.
Right.
do you get some kids that are deterred from that, or they get turned off?
well-
How much fallout you get?
I've been doing this so long, I know how to get to them.
Gotcha.
You know, and then when they, you know, learn it, then they want to try to tell me how to train them. Well, Mr. Marvin, let's work on this, work on that. I said, look, what you know is what I gave you. We working on what I want to work on.
Mm-hmm.
See, because I'm not working on anything that you're not going to do. Why you going to practice something you ain't going to do?
Okay.
You know, and most of the time that's what happens. You know, we working on this, working on that from their idea, and they don't even do it. You know, so you know, I can pretty much look at a person and see where their faults are, and I can correct it. I'm like a finisher, right? You can show me somebody, and from the experience that I have, I can see got his chin up. I can see that he's dragging his foot. I can see that he's not stepping in with his power and everything, and I can correct it, you know.
Wow.
And the guy that started me off, his name was Jimmy McAllister.
Mhm.
He was a former featherweight contender. He was one of the best featherweights in the world. Have you ever heard of Willie Pep?
Willie Pep.
Yeah. He was one of the greatest lightweights ever.
Okay. It sounds familiar, but I can't.
You ever heard of Sandy Sadler?
No,
Yeah, well, back in the day, they were the men. And Willie Pep, he was a Italian. His Pepper, he had a long name, so they just
Yeah.
shortened it up, Willie Pep. Well, the guy that started me off, he's the only man on record that fought Willie Pep to a draw. His name is Jimmy McAllister.
Mhm.
He was a very good, tough old guy, and he would take, if he was living, he would fight right now. He didn't take nothing out for nobody,
Yeah.
you know. And then there was a former heavyweight contender, you might have heard of him, named Larry Middleton. Yeah, from Baltimore. Grew up in Turner Station. He was a former heavyweight contender. You know, he fought Ron Lyle. He fought Jimmy Young. You know, he fought a lot of those guys. And he went over to England and stayed for a minute and was turning up York. You know?
Wow.
And he was a very technical boxer. And this, you know, a lot of times when guys are good, they think it's all about them. But I paid attention,
Yeah.
and I kept all that information, and that's why I started my boxing gym, to try to help the kids like I was helping. Back during the day, I don't know if you was here, but it was an organization called Operation Champ.
Yes, I remember Operation Champ.
Operation Champ was one of the best programs ever developed. They had everything that a kid desired to do.
Mhm.
Baseball, boxing, football, wrestling, karate, you know, ping pong, pool, you know, everything, modern dance, you know, ballet. They just had everything, you know, and it saved my life,
Yeah.
you know, and I had a chance to represent, you know, this region, you know, in the tournaments, you know, the Golden Gloves, the AAU at the time, state championship, to the nationals, Olympic trials and everything. You know, it was really good for me, you know, and I just try to give back to help the kids like I was helping, take another step, because during that time they wasn't really thinking about education.
Yeah.
So I wanted to put a little spin, you know, use the boxing as a draw to get them in. Once I get them in, even though I really love what I do as far as boxing, but to get them, you know, in the educational component and, you know, do the tutoring and stuff like that and really help them along so they can have a choice.
Yeah. And
So-
you,
I'm
so
sorry. So some of your boxing heroes, Sugar Ray Robinson for one,
Oh.
that was my grandmother's cousin.
Oh, yeah?
And she used to rave about him all the time. And Roberto Duran.
Yeah.
Now that was surprising, even though Duran was a great fighter, but
Mhm.
why is he one of your heroes?
Hands of Stone.
Yeah, I mean he
Well,
was
When
yeah.
I was coming up, I used to watch him. He was vicious.
Okay.
He was vicious,
Uh-huh.
and I liked that about him.
Okay.
He was tough as nails.
Mhm.
I was scared for
Yeah.
Sugar Ray last
Yeah.
night. I was,
Right,
I
I
was maybe,
mean-
I was maybe like, I was in my teen, I was maybe 12, 13.
Mhm.
And man, cause Sugar Ray was my favorite, you know, Palmer
Mhm.
Park, Maryland, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Jackie, you know, before that fight, I prayed for that man.
Mhm.
Yeah, he
I thought-
seemed really scary,
I
you know.
thought
Yeah.
He was the meanest,
Yeah.
I was like, man.
And he stayed around a long time, and he fought
Oh,
all these
yeah.
different weight classes. And,
Yes.
you know, he was doing his thing. You know,
Mhm.
and Sugar Ray Robinson. You look up the meaning of boxing in the dictionary, he'd be right there just like
Yeah,
that. You know,
yes.
I'm saying
Master
he was
tactician.
pound for pound the best that ever did it.
Mhm.
You know, and,
So what does that mean, pound for pound? What is that?
Pound
Could
for pound.
I'm sure people out there.
defense, offense,
Uh-huh.
just all around and everything.
Okay.
You know, his mannerism, smart guy,
Mhm.
Brian Townsend.
Because obviously a lightweight, you put him up against a heavyweight, it's
Mhm.
not fair.
Right,
You know,
right.
so-
It won't even go. But I'm saying, in his era and in his weight class, he was the example of what boxers should be and how to act
Mhm.
and how to do. You know,
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
and he was the ultimate person. You know, to represent boxing. You know?
Okay. So
And
he was
Ali was the man too.
Yeah.
I
He
think,
brought the humanistic part to it.
yeah,
Mhm.
sure did. I think Ali during that era, he kind of took it to the next level.
Yeah.
But I heard a lot of, a lot of people say that about Sugar Ray Robinson.
Yeah.
You know, he was a master tactician. He was
Yeah.
smooth, pretty boy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know,
And at one time, you know, he quit boxing and he was an excellent tap dancer.
Yeah. See, I didn't know
He
that.
went on the
Yeah.
road.
Okay.
Yeah, he was tap dancing.
Wow.
And when he was 49 years old, he came back
Mhm.
and fought for the light heavyweight championship, and he was winning,
Mhm.
right? But it just was so hot. It was in Yankee Stadium.
Okay.
It got real hot, and you know he was just turning that guy up, and then he stumbled back to his corner, and you know they had to stop the fight
Mhm.
because he was overheated. Matter of fact, they had to change referees. It was
Okay.
one of the referees fell out.
Wow.
It was so hot.
Wow. What do you think about boxing now versus back in the day?
Well, right now it's all about money.
Yeah, it
It's
seems.
all about money.
Yeah.
Now you have some good boxers out there, you know, but it's a business and everybody's getting paid,
Mhm.
you know. And I know if all this money was out there like back in the 80s and 70s and 30s and 40s, well, you would have a lot of rich black people.
Right.
I'm gonna say a statement. I want you to tell me, and I could be spot on with it, or I could be totally wrong.
Mhm.
But I just want to get your opinion. I'm gonna just say a statement. So, going back to the history. So we're talking about the history of boxing. It started at the turn of the century,
Mhm.
1900 to now. The best boxers always seem to be at the bottom of the economic
Mhm.
food chain.
Right.
Like you had the Irish when they
Mhm.
were immigrants. I mean, well, this is before black people probably got their opportunity,
Mhm.
but it was Italians,
Mhm.
Irish, you know,
Mhm.
some of the Dempseys and all of them.
Yeah.
Those are the ones who was the hungriest.
Mhm.
And then in the 60s and 70s, you had the black. I guess it was a way out of poverty.
Right.
Now you're seeing Hispanic
Right.
Yeah.
dominating the
Mhm.
sport.
Right.
Tell, what are your thoughts on that? Is that you think boxing because you're looking at the talent, okay, the young
Mhm.
talent going in,
Mhm.
because you know you have your talented athletes.
Mhm.
You're gonna choose boxing, baseball for as a kid, you know.
Uh-huh.
What are your thoughts on that? Is that true? You know.
Well, it's not so much as true. It's just that they come from situations where they're more impoverished than we are.
Mm-hmm.
So they use that as a way of life.
Right, exactly.
See, us blacks, we're so talented in everything, you know, that we don't really focus on one situation.
Yeah,
Whereas though them, that's their life, that's what they do.
But at one
Yeah.
point, that was our only outlet.
Right.
Because there was no baseball, no soccer,
Right.
no nothing.
Right.
So that was and you don't need too much. You don't need to go to soccer camp to get
Right.
better. You don't
Right.
need to buy no baseball or mitt. You
Right.
could just put on and you could train.
Right.
So the resources, because I always thought about that, and I don't know how I came. I mean, I observed that, but it seemed like, you know, looking back, whoever's at the bottom of the food chain. But now, we not really at the bottom of the food chain.
Right.
I mean, I hate to say that's a bad analogy, but you see, I mean, most of you look up the box, you look at the boxing participants,
Mhm.
you seeing Jimenez, Lopez, you're
Yeah.
seeing all these guys, and then you see a couple of Russians coming in through
Mhm.
there, but whoever is at the bottom seem to, dominate the sport.
Yeah, and see, you know, those communist countries wouldn't let them come to America, the land of milk and honey. You know, you can come to America and you can really make a lot of money,
Yeah.
Right.
especially if you're not black.
Mhm.
You know, and they finally opened up those what you call it, when they really had control of the people.
Mhm.
People couldn't do anything.
Right.
The communist
The communists,
countries.
yeah.
You know, they kind of eased up on them, and they let them make the money. They come back, they bring the money back home.
Yeah, you're right.
You know,
And I said that because I come from a family. My uncle boxed,
Mhm.
and because that's all they like to fight.
Mhm.
I'm talking about my dad. My dad's like had 14 brothers and sisters,
Mhm.
and my dad used to tell me a story about one of my uncles. He was we're in the islands or in Trinidad, right?
Mhm.
And he going throughout the island. He made a pretty good name for himself.
Mhm.
Gave himself a nickname, right?
Yeah.
Kid Veracruz, right?
Yeah.
So look, so I'm talking about the hunger in it, right?
Mhm.
So he good, he dancing pretty boy, they were poor, but they weren't at the bottom of the barrel.
Mhm.
Mhm.
He went over to Venezuela, his
Mhm.
first international fight, went and got this Spanish guy. One left hook broke his nose.
Mhm.
That was the end of his career, because this
Wow.
guy was hungry.
Mhm.
You see what I mean? And part of that, and I have let me tell you, man, I know I'm talking a lot, but
Mhm.
I have so much respect for
Mhm.
boxing, because I think to me, boxing is like you running a wind sprint,
Mhm.
right? And while you catching your breath, somebody punch you in your stomach.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stamina you need.
Yeah.
And sometimes, some people get knocked out, and you see some people get knocked out not because they just tired. They like humming the phone like, I just need 2 more seconds. 'Cause
Right.
I tried boxing, sir.
Mhm.
By the 3rd round, I'm them 2-pound gloves. It's like this,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't, and so this was no training or nothing. I thought I could just go in there and after about 2 rounds, I couldn't even hold my hands
Sometimes
up,
Yeah.
after a minute, you know.
because these gloves are about 2 pounds.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you swing and miss, it takes
Yeah.
a lot of
You gotta catch your breath.
girl.
Mhm.
People don't realize. People just think, and next thing you know, all that technique is like,
It's a strategy to it. But you brought up something interesting. You said those guys would come and win money and then take it back to their country.
Mhm.
But here, and I find that a lot in different aspects of businesses, we don't keep it in our community.
Right.
So, how, like with the kids that you have coming through your gym, are you educating them on finances and how to keep it in their community?
Yeah, well, you can talk to them about it.
Yeah.
But, none of them really got to the point where they out there making money like that.
Okay.
What they can ask them to do with it. They just got to continuously give themselves a chance.
Right.
You know, and that's the problem with a lot of kids now. They don't know how to give themselves a chance, and they're not around people that can help them give themselves a chance.
Right.
You know, and it kind of throws everything off.
Mm-hmm.
But I just try to bring so many different components in where they don't have no excuse for anything.
Right.
You know, just like I partner with different organizations that can really help them. You know, like I partner with the World Trade Center Institute. Now, most of those southern countries have the same problems that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Kids out of school, kids selling drugs, kids doing crime. So what they do, they send delegations here from those southern countries to pick out the best techniques from grassroots programs like mine, take back to their country, to help their country. You know, and I've had visitors from Central America, all of South America, Mexico, and El Salvador.
Wow.
You know, and they be from the government,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they be from the education, they be from all the systems that involves kids. And you know, we sit around the table, you know, about 12 to 19 of them, with like maybe 2 or 3 interpreters, and they ask me questions, how, why, when, and what, you know, and I give them the answers, you know, and they really appreciate it. And you know, I give them hats and shirts, and there's a lot of them in them countries walking around with my gear on.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good, I mean, let me know where I can get some too.
Yeah,
man.
okay.
I might need an extra medium.
Yeah,
We'll see.
extra medium.
Extra, yeah. That means large.
So let me ask you this, what kind of questions what kind of stuff they're asking you about? What are they trying to think? Because it seems like they picking your brain.
Why?
Why I teach kids?
Why do I do what I do?
Right.
Why do you do what you do?
Right?
Uh-huh.
And what is some of the end results of what I do?
Okay.
And what do the kids get out of it?
Okay.
And how could they partner with me, or you know, get some of the information that I have where they can try to do similar things with their kids.
Okay.
And also we partnered with John Hopkins School of Public Health. They got a class called Children in Crisis. And most of those students come from different countries too, and all around the country. And they have this kind of stereotype about African American kids. And see, they think that most of the black kids sell drugs, do crime,
Right.
do all kind of crazy stuff, right? So what we do, we have them develop relationships with our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes them realize that, hey, just like my cousin,
Mm-hmm.
or just like my aunt or uncle, whatever, you know, so that those stereotype is erased, you know, and they can see that these kids are human just like
Just like
everybody
that,
else,
yeah.
you know.
But if you go by how we are depicted in the media, you would probably have the notion that we're all the same.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Which is great to have like a platform like this to actually show a different side of us. Even going back to the economics, we didn't have anyone in our communities to educate us
Right.
on how to effectively spend our money and keep it in the community.
But once we get the knowledge, we take it out.
We take it out.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We
Yeah.
don't get back. you know.
Right, exactly. So what was your turning point? What made you decide to go into boxing?
Well, what made me go into it is that I was a little knucklehead and I got in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody told me that if they see me again, I'm going to be somewhere that I don't want to be.
Wow.
So, you know, like me and my friends, you know, I used to be a little street fighter.
Mm-hmm.
So we came across this recreation center, and they had boxing in it. You know, so I was a pretty good street fighter.
You can give the name. We can give them a shout out. What's the name of the recreation center?
Well, it is closed down now. It's
Okay.
Ames Community Center
Okay.
on Calhoun and Gold Street.
Come on, Calhoun and go. Okay.
And I went in, you know, and I thought, you know, I had no hands, so I got in there and started dealing with him, you know, and I kept coming back. Next thing I know, I took his place.
Oh wow.
you know, and from then on, that was my life, you know.
So Jack, I was just want to read a couple comments. We got a lot of people online saying, okay, we got Mr. Arthur says, thanks for the knowledge, you know, gentlemen. When we were talking about money, Mr. Clark says, best time to learn about money is before you have it.
Right.
When you were teaching it, and that's a good say. And everyone's a lot of people saying great show, male and female. So, yeah, this is. Let me ask you this. You had what was your first humbling experience? You know, as far as where you because you know it's competition, of course. You fight, and everybody wants to win. Every kid wants to win.
Right.
So you're gonna have to deal with some level of disappointment.
Right.
So how did that first humbling experience where somebody knocked your lights out,
Well,
not knock you out, but beat you,
Well,
handle
I'll
you?
tell you what, my first 3 matches I lost. And I used to come to those fights and I look at them trophies and I really wanted one of them trophies. And I get one of them trophies. I get one. You know, so my first 3 bouts, I lost. So I started training hard, started listening more, started doing things that I should have been doing to win. And then after that, I went 25 fights undefeated.
Oh, wow.
And I won the South Atlantic Championship. You know.
So what were you doing wrong in the first 3 fights?
Well, half coming in the gym. You know,
Preparation.
And so your ego,
preparation.
took over.
Yeah, I thought
Yeah.
because you know I had lower hands, right? I can get I get anybody.
Right.
You know? But and I'm, you know, so
Preparation.
I knew what I had to do, and the most things that hurt a lot of people is listening. See, boxing helped develop listening skills, you know, respect, camaraderie, all those characteristics you need to be a positive person in society.
Sure.
You know, you can get from boxing.
And that's so ironic, you know, everyone look at this sometimes, you know, boxing gets a bad rap, but barbaric, you know, and, you know, but the things that you mentioned, the camaraderie, you know, sportsmanship, the thrill of competition, listening, playing. Well, Mike Tyson said everybody got a plan until they get hit.
That's
That's
right.
true.
And so you really, so you're dealing with adversity, right? And so after you get that little bit of adversity, you still have to stick to your plan.
Yeah, and check this out, right? It takes, anybody can't do it. It takes a very strong-willed person, right, to do this thing. Now here, you looking across the ring, right? You don't know nothing about this guy.
True.
You don't know nothing about you. You're going to inflict your will on him. He's going to inflict his will on you.
Yeah.
It takes nerve.
And you
it
judging
takes
him, right?
guts.
You looking at him and you be
Right.
like, yeah, I could take this guy.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't know what he did to prepare to get you where you're at.
And then too, when you compete, right, you want to win so bad, right? This one man that's in this ring that's in control, that's the referee. I'm saying it has so much humbling stuff involved with that. Following instructions, the discipline, everything that you need. This one man is in control. He could be a midget, but when he make his commands, you're gonna follow it because you want to win, right? This one man, here you inflicting your will on this guy, and he inflicting his will on you, and he just goes, stop,
Yeah, sure.
and right just like that,
Wow.
you stop.
Yeah.
And then you waiting for this man to say continue, because you want to win so bad, or you know that you're going to follow instructions, you're going to listen. Now, what if you take those same characteristics in life? That you know, you gotta follow a way, you gotta listen, you gotta do what you're supposed to do. You know, you gotta discipline yourself. I'm saying boxing just has so many different life components in it that if a kid is away from it, he'll have those same characteristics and he can be very successful in life. Very successful.
You mentioned something real. You're absolutely right, because that it has a lot of correlations to life, because you're saying, you know, first of all, it's the mental preparation and the physical. You know, the physical strain is obvious, but then you have you're in a zone and you fighting, you know,
Mhm.
and you give me 100%, and the man
Mhm.
says stop.
Yeah.
You have to stop.
Yeah.
You know, and then when he says continue, now you
Mhm.
have to turn it back on.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's discipline.
That's discipline, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if you lose that intensity, you might
You lose the fight.
lose the
Right,
fight.
right.
And you want to win so bad that you will go through anything
Mhm.
to get it.
Yeah.
So, like I say, if you carry those same characteristics in life and other things that's not hurtful,
Mhm.
like boxing,
Yeah.
what kind of person you think you'll be?
Because one, and keep in mind, one mistake could cost you the fight.
That's right.
Lennox Lewis, my favorite fighter.
Mhm.
You know, he would not have lost until he turned his head to the left
Yeah.
and gave Rockman a clear shot.
Yeah.
And nobody, I don't care what kind of fighter you are,
Mhm.
no one, I mean, once you hit your jaw,
Mhm.
that's like,
That
something-
shakes
it's
you
your,
up.
It's
Yeah.
your nerves or
See
something
that
going on.
Exactly.
jugular vein,
Yes.
right? Takes your legs away.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, and you just mentioned the science of that. So,
Mhm.
are you teaching the kids, right? I'm getting
Of
back to the
course.
kids. So are you teaching them anatomy, the physiology of
Right,
all this
right,
stuff too?
right. See, you know, like a lot of the top boxers that were world champions, right?
Mhm.
Before they can even come and get back and train kids, they stay in it too long, and their mental capacity is not there.
Absolutely.
You know, whereas it could really be a help, you know, in society as far as helping these kids along,
Mhm.
but they stay in it too long, and they can't get back because they don't have the mental capacity to get back.
And that's a great point. So if they don't have the right people in their corner, when it's hard for them to know when
Really
is the
learn
right
again.
time to
Yeah.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
And see, with me, you know, my last fight, right, was in 1989. And a guy beat me that had no business beating.
Hmm.
And my father looked at me and said, "Hey, boy, it's over." I said, "Yeah, Dad." You know, and I never put the gloves on again.
Agreed?
Huh?
You agreed?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
knew it.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah,
knew
dude
it.
knocked me down. Stopped
Yeah.
me in the first round. This guy couldn't carry my bag to the gym.
So why do you say he couldn't carry your bag? Why?
Because I used to spar with him, I used to beat him up. And then we eventually fought. I was a little older than him, and this guy caught. People thought I took a dive.
But he progressed though.
Yeah.
He got better.
He
So
caught-
that's not a reflection on you.
Yeah, but he caught me,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know. And I used to have a chin like on,
Mm-hmm.
but that dude caught me and went down. Everybody was like nah.
Yeah.
But you know, that
But
was
you
it.
knew it. You knew
Yeah,
at that
yeah.
time that was
Yeah.
the end when so many
Yeah.
others will keep
And-
coming back.
Right,
Yeah.
not me.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of embarrassed too. Because you know,
Okay.
there's somebody ain't had no business doing that to me. You know, so
Yeah. So tell me what goes through your mind when you lost. There's the embarrassment.
Mhm.
How much of that is, like, because I'm not a boxer, right?
Mhm.
But I lost a fight before,
Mhm.
and it pissed me off, and
Mhm.
I'm like wanting revenge, all this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And in the effort of sportsmanship, in the essence of sportsmanship, how much of that are these kids going through where they understand, like, you know, this guy just kicked my ass, but
Mhm.
I want to give you, you know, let's knock gloves and say, you know.
Yeah, but I'm saying if he beat you with the gloves on, imagine what happened when he got the gloves off.
Right.
I ain't think about that, right?
Yeah, you know,
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's where I look at that. Now.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to get some help. You're gonna have to pull a bigger stick or something. You know.
I ain't think about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. You lost.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm saying, hey man, this dude beat you up with the gloves on, and you want to try to get some more with them off?
Right.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. I can see
That's
that.
when you need to have your thinking cap on because that's not a good idea.
Let me go find somebody else.
Well, boxing
Right.
is one of the most humbling sports out there.
Gotta be. Has to be.
And fatigue makes cowards out of men.
Mhm.
And just so happened, Saturday was some competition down in Glen
Mm.
right? And one of my guys fought, right? And it was his second fight. On paper, he won. But the way that he finished, he was so tired and hanging all over the ring and
Oh,
ropes
wow.
and everything.
Yeah.
And they gave the decision to the other guy.
And that's the thing about the judges. It's like sometimes you see some people win close decisions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because no one really. I mean, of course they got to comp you by box knowledge.
Even being the one
That's
you
how
gotta
you
look like
finish.
one.
Right, yeah, that's it.
You know, 'cause
Yeah.
if you finish with a flurry each round,
Mm-hmm.
that's the last thing that they.
People are looking like, how did they win?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I've seen a lot of fights like, how in the world did
What
they
in the world
win?
were they looking
Exactly.
at?
What were they looking at? Were they looking at the same fight?
Yeah, but they judge you on all kinds of.
Well, talk about the controversy of boxing and throughout the history, because part of that, I think, when you have decisions and you have a controversy, it's good for the sport because you got debate and be
Yeah.
like, yeah, this person should have won. Nah, this person should have won.
But a lot of times it's not fair
Mhm.
because like you gotta realize how much time people put into it,
Yeah,
Mhm.
you know?
absolutely.
and they sacrificing so much,
Mhm.
and to get up there and get to a point where somebody cheats you or you get the wrong decision or whatever,
Yeah.
it's hurting. It's very discouraging.
Did
And,
Hagler beat Durant? I mean, no, I'm sorry. Did Hagler beat Lennon? Did Lennon beat Hagler?
No.
Yeah.
No. See, the last minute of every round, Leonard would throw a flurry.
Yep. That's the way he ended.
Right.
Yep. Absolutely.
And the judges always remember the last thing that they saw. They forgot all about the 2 minutes that Hagler was beating them up.
Okay.
Yep. Absolutely.
So that's the way that went.
Yeah.
And that's
And then one time, in that 9th round, when Hagler was beating on Sugar, had him on the ropes,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden he stopped. He backed off. I couldn't understand that.
What do you think
he got tired.
No,
he got
Yeah.
paid.
he was
Let
messing,
me-
up, he messing up the plan.
Right, and so brings me to an interesting point.
Controversy.
When not just the controversy, when a fighter loses and they shouldn't have, does it come back to the money is going to be made up in the rematch?
At times it does.
Yeah.
At times it does, because when you sign a contract, win or lose, that's what you're going to get.
Right.
True.
Mhm.
So a lot of times people think that people do the fight. No, I ain't doing no fight. Whatever he signed for, that's how much he's getting.
Okay.
Greatest fight you ever witnessed?
There haven't been none.
So Hagler and Hearns wasn't.
No, that wasn't
You
a
wasn't
great
impressed with
fight.
that?
I expected that.
You. I still get chills watching that on YouTube.
Really?
Yeah, I'm saying they threw so many punches. Man,
Yes.
jumped on them. And
Yes.
Oh, man.
And if that
he
fight
saw that
would've
blood, man. He just
Yeah.
went crazy.
Yeah, that scares you. It scares you.
Yeah, of
So
course.
you wasn't impressed. You not impressed with that fight?
Nah,
Oh my gosh, you tough, man. You tough. Okay.
Because that's a boxing historian. So
See, I kind of look at the skill.
yeah.
Okay.
There have been a lot of fights that Sugar Ray Robinson. Man, I'm telling you, man, he could be backing up and knock you out.
Mhm.
And it's hard when somebody's backing up.
Well, Ali used to do that. Like I've seen, like 10 years old, I'm just starting getting into boxing, and I'm thinking, you knock somebody out, that's when you win. And like I said, it was a way for me and my father to bond. And he was explaining to me about the scoring and that. And it was this guy who started walking towards Ali, and Ali hit him with 3, bam, 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 bam. And then they held each other. Right? He said, "See, Ali just scored 3 points."
Yeah.
Before he even did it, because I was thinking like Ali, pretty boy Ali, but Ali wasn't a guy who knocked people out.
Yeah,
So
he
he
get
worked
them
on
points
it.
on.
Yes.
And he'll hit you with the same punch all the time, eventually wear you out.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
So Mayweather, is he arguably the best defensive fighter
In his era.
In his era?
In his era.
Okay. So, it's
Well,
it's
and
hard
I
to
think
impress
it's-
this man.
that's-
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Okay. So do you feel like he fights more of a street fight, or he's more
No,
technique?
he's
just
a
can't hit him.
he's a technical fighter.
Mhm.
I'm saying.
Is he good for the box? Is
most-
he good for the sport?
Yeah, as far as money.
Money, yeah.
Yeah. What I'm saying, he was a very good boxer.
Mhm.
Could anybody beat him? And haven't anybody beat him?
Nobody can't talk. They can't.
You know?
Yeah, they can't hit him.
You know, I have a great respect for him.
Okay.
You know, but as far as that pound for pound, all this stuff, man, yeah, you know,
Okay.
he's great in his era.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
Muhammad Ali was great in his era. Sugar Ray Robinson was the best all around.
Right, and so when we go back to that, and you asked him the question about who was he impressed by, it would be hard for him to be impressed by other boxers because he set the bar high.
Right.
With
I'm
Sugar
saying
Ray Robinson.
Sugar Ray Robinson was the ultimate boxer.
Yeah.
You know, some people might not agree with it,
Mhm.
but from my knowledge and my 40-something years of being involved in boxing, you know, he's mine.
Look, I ain't gonna argue.
You may have to
look,
go watch some old tapes or
I ain't gonna argue with the man
something.
because obviously he could kick my ass. But all right, let me ask you this. I think one of the most talented athletes that I ever came across, Roy Jones Jr.
Yeah.
Because, and I think what led to his downfall was the fact that he lost his reflexes and those
And
hair.
it exposed his chin. He
Yes.
never had a
Right,
chin.
right.
He was just so fast and
Mhm.
defensive and he moved and
Yeah.
you know he was powerful, and he never had a chin
But I think
because he never
as
got tapped.
I think as he got older,
Yeah.
those when you used to miss him, he
Yeah,
started
slowed
he started
down.
getting
Yeah.
hit.
Yeah.
And that was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now he was one that shouldn't have came back.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
because of his name, because I saw this Russian
Mm-hmm.
knock him out, man. It was pitiful. You know he has Russian citizenship.
Roy Jones Jr.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Him and Putin are very good friends because Putin was like a mixed martial art in that context.
Mhm.
Yeah, he does that. And Roy Jones has dual citizenship
Wow.
and
That's
Russian
interesting.
citizenship.
See, I seen Roy Jones hit a man on the left hook, broke it when he went to light heavyweight. That's the
Mhm.
highest up he ever went.
Mhm.
Broke that man rib with a rib shot. I mean,
Mhm.
you know, so it's. I think, and he's also the guy that played basketball today, the morning,
Right.
and then came in and did a lot of. He was a good showmanship. He tried to hype it up. But
Right.
He was a rapper.
Yeah,
Right.
you're right. Yep, absolutely.
when I looked at him, I was like, man, this guy is a skilled athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But then again, you're not impressed. So, okay.
Well,
okay.
because look at who his hero is, you know, so it's
Yeah.
kind of hard
Yeah,
to say.
He's tough. He's tough.
Yeah, exactly.
No, what I'm saying, I give credit where it's due.
Yeah.
I'm saying, if I compare the fighters now to the fighters back then,
Right.
no
But
comparison.
that's the beauty about the sport, where because not much has changed since Jack Johnson.
Mhm.
Maybe the time and the rounds and the amount of rounds, but
Yeah.
pretty much a fight is a fight,
Right.
and you can show you could look at Mayweather and then pull up the technique of Livingstone Bramble,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and
But
look and see and
Mayweather could not beat Tommy Hearns. He could not beat Sugar Ray
they the
Leonard.
same weight class.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, you
he could not beat them.
Yeah.
you right.
You know, and I have a lot of respect for Mayweather.
Mhm.
Like I say, in his era,
Uh-huh.
he wouldn't be able to beat Duran.
There goes the debate.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm serious, man. You know, like he wouldn't have enough to keep them off of.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking. I mean, like I said, I was a fan during the golden years, the '80s.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the late '70s and '80s. You know,
Mhm.
you had the Mark Breland.
Yeah.
You know these
Yeah.
guys. You had you know, I mean, and we talking about like throughout the weight class, like because at one point you have everyone knew who the heavyweight champion
Mhm.
is because he's the baddest man on earth, right? But now it's to a point. Tell me your thoughts about the fact that it's not that so way now. You know, with all the different belts and you know, you
Yeah.
ask them.
And this promoter will not let this champion fight
Yeah.
that.
Right,
You know,
What's that
right.
doing to the sport? You know?
It's not really doing nothing to the sport. It's just bringing money in the sport.
Right.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Either you can fight or you can't.
Because it used to be like you knew who the fastest man in the world was,
Mhm.
and you knew who the heavyweight champion
Yeah.
was. That's
And-
it.
That's
and
true.
It wasn't all
That's so
these
true.
belts
Right.
Say if Sugar Ray Robinson was a champ, he was a unified champ.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Yep,
You know?
exactly.
If Joe Louis was the champ, he was a unified champ.
Yeah, exactly.
But now, see, because money is really
Right.
taking over,
Right.
you know, they developed these belts, the IBA, IBO,
Yes, absolutely.
WBC, WBA, IBC, and, you know, all these other championship belts, you know, to rain money in,
Yeah.
you know.
So do you think with the amount of money coming through boxing now, do you think that you actually see a really good fight?
It's just hard to say.
Yeah.
You know, it's a build up. You know, if you've been watching somebody their whole career, just like, you know, like they talk about Earl Spence, right? You heard of him? Well, he's the welterweight champ. He wants to fight, what's his name? Sean Porter. Sean Porter just won the title. He beat Danny Garcia. You ever heard of Danny Garcia? Well, they the welterweights, right? They up and they, you know, trying to do some things. But those guys, I was amongst them when they were amateurs. You know, matter of fact, one of my kids fought Danny Garcia in the USA Nationals in what, Colorado Springs, Colorado. You know, and you know he lost a close fight to him. But I'm saying all these guys, I've been amongst them. I'm gonna show you some pictures and stuff right now of all of them. You know?
Okay.
But boxing is just it's money now. It's money now. But there are some good fighters that's still out there. You know, it ain't no joke.
Do they still have fights down at the New Burns Arena?
Yeah.
I saw
Matter
something
of
really
fact,
good.
there's a
amateur.
fight. There's a fight in Bowie. This Saturday coming.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there, you know, I know about all this stuff.
There's yeah, because I think is it next week that Jerome Featherstone fights?
Yeah, he's doing that MMA stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Oh,
yeah.
he's doing
Yeah.
MMA now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's actually going to be on the show next month.
Yeah, he was a pretty good boxer.
Yeah,
pretty good boxer.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's good to see people thriving in the sport, but even more importantly, it's great to have the kids be educated about the history
Yeah.
and not just boxing, but just getting educated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's what I live for.
Yeah, and
You
it
know.
shows you're so passionate about what you do. Now, are there any scholarships for
Yeah,
boxing?
well, matter of fact, I'm the president of the Maryland Boxing Hall of Fame. First African American president of the Maryland
Oh,
Boxing
wow.
Hall of Fame. We have a George Norris Scholarship Fund, right? But we just haven't found nobody yet to give it to.
Okay.
You know, we got $5,000
Wow.
to give up. You know, not gonna give them all the thousand, but you know, we
Right.
give portions of it. You know, to help with the books and everything
Absolutely.
like that.
Right.
Now, there are tournaments that kid can get into. It's called the Silver Gloves, and every time a kid signs up for the Silver Gloves, $500 is put away towards education.
Wow.
And when they win the national championship, additional $1,500 is put away for education. You can get it for trade school or whatever, anything educational wise, you can use that money for. All right, you're in the Silver Gloves from 8 years on to 15. So all that money is
Building.
building,
Mhm.
you know, so, you know, when you want it, you ask for it, they get to you.
Wow.
You know?
Let me ask you, you when you said that, are there like boxing programs adopted by the university at the university?
Oh yeah,
level?
yeah, that's college
I
boxing.
don't hear too much about that.
Yeah,
That's-
well, what I've been trying for a long time to get boxing in Cotton State College.
oh, man,
You know,
that'd
it
be nice.
would be one of the first historically black colleges with a boxing program. But most of the colleges around the country has it. Yale, Princeton, Harvard, Naval Academy, Penn State,
Interesting. Because if they do,
Georgia.
if they could do wrestling, you know, if wrestling's adopted, I never even thought about that. I I had no idea.
Yeah, we
that,
have about
took this
maybe 45 colleges that have boxing. They have a National Collegiate Boxing Championship, and they have a U.S. Intercollegiate Boxing Championship.
Wow.
And you know, matter of fact, one of the boxers that I worked with won the U.S. United States Intercollegiate Boxing Championship
Wow.
for UMBC,
Which weight class?
junior welterweight, 140 pound, 41 pound. Yeah, we call him the educated boxer.
Educated.
Wow.
Yeah, he has his master's degree and he's going for his doctor.
Oh, that's excellent.
See, there goes that stereotype.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm so glad that you are mentioning the educational aspect.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you, man, people have this thing where, you know, boxing gyms are these.
They think that anybody can do it.
Right.
It takes a thinking person to be a good boxer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there's been a lot of preachers that has a boxing background. You know, what's his name? I know a couple of them that became preachers. You know, when they retired.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you know they were so vicious and everything. You know, after all was said and done, they gave their life to God. You know, trying to do good.
Yeah, it was Foreman, I think.
Yeah, George
Became
Foreman was a preacher.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, he used to
Case in point.
do his sermons on the parking lot.
Sure did.
So he came back to build the church.
Build the
Right,
church.
right.
You know, to make money to build a church.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But isn't it interesting with him? He made more money commercially than prize fighting.
Then right, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, selling grills than
Right.
you know,
Yeah,
prize
he's
fighting.
the face of a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
You know, making good money.
But you will have to set yourself up after boxing because you can't box your entire life.
Yeah,
It's
true.
the same with pretty
Yeah.
much any sport.
Yeah.
You have to have something else to fall back
Gotta
on.
have fallback plan.
Right. Yeah, because not everybody makes the big purse. And even if you do, you have to be able to put money up to secure your future and venture into other things.
And see, you know, when I was in school, because I started boxing when I was 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to high school, I got in trade. I'm a master barber too. You know, so you know, like I've been self-employed for a long time, and that gave me the room to start my own nonprofit. You know, and the rest is my story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell them where they can find your barbershop.
One Diamond Mall,
Okay.
in the basement of my Diamond Mall.
Okay.
You know, I can cut your head and I can beat your head. You know?
The choice is yours.
Yeah, which one you want?
Now I got a 10-year-old son. Okay.
Mhm.
He elected to choose karate.
Mhm.
And I remember, so he's at that point now where he's been doing it 3 years. And
What's his belt?
Um,
Belt yet?
he has a, his belt is blue.
Blue.
Right. I think like 6th degree or something like that. 10 years old. But the thing about it, my son is so cerebral.
Mhm.
He's a thinker.
Mhm.
He did well. He does well because he listens and he's very coachable.
Right.
Okay.
Very, very smart kid. So whenever he's doing his techniques, he always skipped the belt, jumped the belt, you know.
Yeah.
So he had really early success.
Mhm.
He has a vision board. He wants to be a black belt by the time he's in high school,
Mhm.
right? And so you see that persistence. So I remember the first time. So now he's doing contact now. He's at
Mhm.
that point where put on my pads and everything.
Yeah.
And you see this little. And so he's always one of the smaller kids.
Mhm.
You know, and I remember he got tagged. Right?
Okay.
And so he was sitting in the back seat, and I said, "So how you feel?" He was like, and you could hear his voice kind of cracking. Right? He was like, I said, "You scared?" He said, "A little bit."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "You want to quit?" I don't know. Right? So I let him marinate a little bit. When we got home, first thing he wanted to do, he wanted to practice.
Mhm.
So I ain't no pads or anything like that. So I got a pillow, and he punched it. I said because he's so, he never had that. He didn't have that not killer instinct, but it was like he a lot of things come easy to him because he's so smart and so he didn't have that too much adversity. So he practiced. Next tournament, because he elected to go in this tournament. He didn't even have to go in this tournament because he went in the tournament, got a couple trophies, and started winning some of his matches because he started getting the technique because he knew he developed this little move where, because since he's small, a lot of kids just try to overpower him.
Step around,
right? And so, I would love to get my son into boxing. Matter of fact, my wife and my girls, they was trying to find a self-defense, and they would kind of look into boxing as well. So to those people who might be interested in boxing, because boxing's been kind of like on the fringe a little bit, as far as fitness sports, but never really mainstream.
A boxing workout is the best workout that you can get. You exercise every muscle in your body.
Wow.
Guaranteed to give you that summer body, tone you up, and see when you get on the heavy bag, that resistance. Some people get with weights, the punching bag, and do the exact same thing. So like I developed a boxercise routine. You don't even have to get no contact. I'm saying just going through the motion, training like a boxer.
Oh, wow.
You'll get fit.
So tell me more about the boxercise. You said it's a routine, or is it a...
it's like going through the motion. All right. Now when you first come to the gym, you exercise. Do your calisthenics, set-ups, arm raises, leg raises, and everything.
Sit-ups.
Then you work the technique. You develop the jab, the right hand, the whole uppercut. Right. Then after you learn that technique down, get it real down, then you put on heavy bag. Right. Then you work the mitts, and then you can spar, but you don't have to spar.
It's up to you.
Just going through the motion, learn how to jump rope, hit the speed back. Training just like you getting ready for a fight, but you're not going to fight.
Okay.
But it's good to get all that, get your adrenaline up and everything. I recommend it for anyone. Really. But once you mention boxing, everybody always think about the contact.
That's true.
And it's not all contact.
Absolutely.
Well, we've learned that today. That is.
It's very good. And I'm really glad that you mentioned that because, like I said, people don't really realize that it's about the training. It's about the journey.
And there's a stereotype, that is unfounded.
Yeah.
And like I say, a lot of the people that were very good and champions, they stay in it too long where they can't really discuss and explain the situation like I can.
But for you the kind of discipline it takes, you talk about being in a life, let's say some of these boxers who made it successfully started when they're teenagers, okay? So you being in that life for so long, like getting up 5 a.m. runs, the workout, the journey, how can you walk away from that?
Well, you can open up a gym and you can train.
Let's go back to that fight where he was, defeated. It's like, okay, enough is enough. Let me move on.
But
I
I'm
think
saying,
you know.
when I first started my boxing program, right? Because they didn't know what they were doing, I used to give them advanced training. I would get in there, and I'm making moves and showing them different things, and I'm in there boxing, sparring with them and stuff like that, and that makes them better, But as they get good, I said, you hitting on too hard. I ain't gonna mess with that. I put somebody else in there.
So tell me what boxing does for your body. Like for instance, if I start doing this boxing training, how would it benefit my personal relationship with my wife?
Stamina.
The stamina. And see, a lot of times, right?
I need some motivation.
Right.
As far as the drive, when you don't have tight stomach muscles, right? It kind of affects you down there.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I'm saying? So if you're doing your setups and you're still building yourself up, you know, then everything else come along.
She probably gonna text me, like, you better take up
You
boxing.
better take
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. But I'm saying any exercise, you know, is tighten your body. This is the core of everything.
So why is that so important? Why is the core so important?
Because that controls everything. Your walking, your balance, you know,
Posture.
it just, you know, just align everything up.
Right. Yeah, you need some lining up.
This man, he's schooling us.
Is the missus listening?
No, no, she's not on. We got some comments.
He's
though.
gonna get that text on the way home. You need to start taking this boxing.
So we got some great show. Again, keep pushing. Then we got Hey Queen,
Yeah.
and Dr. Love is on. So hey Nate, how's it going?
Hey, Dr. Love.
I mean, wow. Listen, you're right. You're absolutely right. There's so much knowledge.
Oh yes.
You probably
absolutely.
forgot more than I could even know about boxing. Like I said, I've always been a fan and always had a great respect for boxing because, like I said, it's run a wind sprint, and while you're catching your breath, try to dodge somebody punching you. That's what being in the ring
Yeah.
for 3 minutes. Is.
And see, a lot of people don't realize it's all about technique.
Mhm.
All about technique. You know, just little stepping around, little subtle stuff that you might do that people would think you're a whirlwind. You know, a lot of people
Okay.
just stepped around.
Like this spacing out your feet and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
And when you jab, see the average person will step with their front foot first. But you get a good jab, come from the back and step in. You know, that's
Is
where
that
the
for
power
balance?
comes.
Okay.
You know, that's where the power comes from. You know, but see, you got a lot of people that are couch coaches. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
every weekend they sitting on the couch. You know,
They'll tell you
yeah, I'm gonna
about-
try that when I go to the gym Monday. You know, and it's very discouraging. You know, for a kid when you training somebody, and they're going out there and they getting their butt whipped.
Right.
Easier
Yeah.
You know.
said than done.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm saying, I feel that I'm a very good teacher, and I have produced a lot of good technical fighters.
Mhm.
You know, and the word is out that if you want to learn how to box and you want to learn the technique, you better go down to Umar.
That's right.
You know?
Say it again.
And tell them where they can
Say it-
find you.
Say it again.
Yeah,
Say it again.
Umar is at 1217 West North Avenue, right over top of the pawn shop, right at North and Druid Hill.
Okay.
I'm saying is we open at 4 to 9, and no hooks before books because you can't have one without the other.
Mhm.
You know, and if it's mandatory for the kids just from 6 to 13, but if anybody need help, we have the certified school teachers that can help.
Okay.
And I just recommend it for any
So what schools some of your kids go to?
all through the city, all the city, because
Yeah.
it's a citywide program.
Mhm.
Kids come from everywhere, even come from the county.
Wow. Okay.
See, because the reputation that we have out there, people like that educational component, to know
Right,
hooks
of
before
course.
books.
Yeah.
That's our legal trademark that belongs to us.
Mhm.
If anybody else using it, they're gonna hear from it.
That's right.
Yeah.
You don't want to hear from this man.
So you have a big event coming up. Tell us
Yeah,
about that.
We have a boxing for books. For the past 9 years, we've been having a big fundraiser called Boxing for Books, and it's at the Anthem House
Okay.
down in Locust Point. Boxing exhibition.
When is it?
Well, it's September the 27th. It's coming up soon.
Yeah.
I am there, bro.
And I'm telling you, last year the mayor was there,
Yeah.
police commissioner.
Okay. So tell me about the card. What's the lineup? I mean, who's?
Well, the lineup is just gonna be a little exhibition between
Okay.
some of our boxes and in the program. Just showing a little technique, a little
Mhm.
spawning around. We're gonna have a silent auction. We're gonna be selling our shirts
That's cool.
and cocktails and nice food and just a enjoyable atmosphere.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, it's real nice. Once you come, you're gonna look forward to coming next year.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna have some champion fighters that's local. I'm gonna try to get Jared Swift-Hurd. He's from Hillcrest Boxing. He's the 154-pound weight class unified champ. And Gary Russell, he's a featherweight champ from DC.
Awesome.
So I'm gonna try to get some of these celebrity boxers. I'm trying to get Franchon Cruz. She just won the super middleweight world champs, WBC championship. So we'll just try to have some boxes there. You know, maybe take some pictures. And,
Okay.
sign some autographs.
Yeah,
whatever.
it's so refreshing to hear that boxing is still, not still, but alive and well in the sport. You know, especially with you introducing it to kids.
Yeah.
You know, you need that pipeline, you know, for it to prosper because, I mean, aside from the obvious, ain't nothing you can do in life without discipline, courage,
That's true. Yeah.
and all of the traits that boxing has. You have to be able to master them.
Yeah.
And it's so refreshing to hear the things that you're doing, especially in the communities that need it.
Yeah. One of my goals is get it in public school. Because most of the kids that come in my program go to these public schools.
Right.
The structure, the discipline, the dedication, the esteem. You know, what if the whole school system was carrying that?
So how far are we away from that? Is that
I
really?
don't know. See, sometimes you don't have people in charge that has a sports background, so they can't understand the relationship. You know, see, you can't get kids all the same way.
Right.
You know, you gotta find different ways of getting to them. And, you know, boxing get to them, they can cut down on that bullying,
That's true.
you know, because say I got a bully person and the bullier. We start both of them off at the same time in the program. The bully, see this kid is learning the same way that he's learning. And matter of fact, he's learning faster and a little better. That would kind of discourage the bully from messing with him
Right.
because he feeling that his kid is becoming equal to him or even better than him.
Right.
And that can cut all that stuff out, you know.
So what do you think is the biggest challenge for parents and the community to adopt something like boxing in high school?
Yeah, well, what I have to do is start off with boxer size, right? Where there's no contact. I'm teaching them the skill. All right, they have platforms with heavy bags and speed bags and jump ropes and stuff like that. And they go through the motion of training, and they can follow up if there's a boxing gym in their area. You know, but just these kids sit up in the classroom all day, right? And then when they go to lunch, that's where they have time to express themselves, and they going nuts,
Right.
you know? So if I got there early and wore off some of that energy, by the time they go to lunch, they cool,
Yeah.
you know? So that's what I would want to do, just knock off all that energy from just waking up in the morning, you know, and they'll be cool the whole day, you know?
And you're saying they have these same grassroots programs that you're interested in putting in a city, at Yale and at all
Yeah,
these different,
Yeah.
in the Naval Academy, you know, interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah.
That's like eye-opening to me.
Yeah, a friend of mine, matter of fact, on my page, on my Facebook page, the Naval Academy came to visit us.
Get out of there.
Yeah, I'm friends with the coach, Jim McDowell. So every year when they're getting ready for their plebe championship, right, they come to the inner city to get them urbanized.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
You know, and when they go out, they win the championship because most of those kids come from these rich families. You know, they're not into this boxing and stuff and getting roughed up. So he's smart enough to bring them to the inner city, you know, and get them that rough, and they win the championships because they get used to that contact, that rough contact, right? So every year he bring them in, and we rough them up. And, you know,
So what's going to stop us from? Because if we good enough to have training, you know, just like one time Larry Holmes was Muhammad Ali's sparring partner.
Right.
You
I
know what I
remember
mean?
that, yeah.
And he became the champ.
right.
Even beating him. at
Right.
one point. I just.
It's just, you know, so to some people, you know, the stuff that you think that makes sense, it just flies over their head.
That's true. That's so
Absolutely
true.
right.
Yeah, that's so true.
You know, now say if I got one school involved, right? The main thing that they worry about is liability,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Okay, that's it.
All right. But I'm saying football. If you put a football player and a boxer together, you know, and start them off at the same time, who do you think would have the most injuries at the end of the season?
I know.
The football player.
I know it's gonna be football.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
They're
boxing,
getting crunched and
statistically, boxing, people think about head injuries.
Right.
Right.
It's very. You might
The
get
gloves are made to absorb shot, not give off shot.
Right. You might get a hand injury before you get a head injury.
That's
Yeah.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely
And like
right.
I say, it ranks 23rd as far as children's sports injuries.
And I'm just thinking, man, if Baltimore City had the same way we have a football league, if we have a boxing league, I would totally go watch. I would totally go and watch them compete. I've seen, like I said, I was asked about Du Burns Arena. I saw a couple of amateur fight. I also saw Mr. Featherstone there.
Okay.
His one of his family members work with me, so we got some tickets to go see.
Yeah,
him.
and I probably was down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I saw this kid, man. They brought. I swear, must have been 5-6 years ago. So he's older now, and I'm sure he's still in the game. I can't remember his name. This kid looked like a young Roy Jones. These kids were so skillful. We're talking about 12, 13 years old. They were moving like it was like an orchestrated dance. They were so quick and
Might have
so.
been one of my kids.
Yeah.
I mean, they were so close to each other. Like when one person moved forward, the other person would back up. It's like they tied a string to them. And they were like moving like this. It was, and yes, and it was so. I mean,
That's the art.
yes,
That's the art of boxing.
absolutely. And my God, I looked at the talent. I looked at the talent. I was like, this is an athlete.
Yeah.
You know who, and I talked to him. I swear I can't remember his name. You know. I saw him afterwards in a concourse, and I was like, "Man, can I get you some popcorn or something?"
Right, yeah.
You know, talked to his dad. And
Yeah,
he was
it'd be a lot of amazing stuff going on.
Yeah.
You know, like I remember I started this little girl off. Her name Zori. We call her Zoria the Best. And they had this all-girl fight over in D.C. area, right? And this was like her first fight. And you know how everything that you teach them. And me and my other coach, we would sit there and watching. Oh, you see that? Oh, we was going crazy.
Yeah.
I'm saying we was going crazy. She was just hitting it off, just hitting it off, you know.
And some of the best skill comes from the lower weight class. We got somebody asking, what are the gym hours? For
49.
your gym. 4 to 9. Mr. Dro, 4 to 9.
So when is boxer size?
Boxer size is going through routine.
Okay.
Jumping rope, exercising, speed bag, heavy bag, shadow boxing, you know, whole 9 yards, all that.
And so that's every day at the gym, or
Yeah, every day.
Okay.
Every day.
So what's the significance of jumping rope?
Jump
What is
rope
it?
building up the adrenaline,
Okay.
keep your heart rate up,
Okay.
so that when you are in that spawn, you can
Stay like
keep it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about shadow boxing? What is that?
Shadow boxing is working the technique, perfecting the technique, and the proper way to throw the jab. Right hand.
So are you literally boxing against? I mean, looking at a shadow and throwing punches. Or?
No, you just well, you have a mirror sometimes. You know, we have
Okay.
mirrors that you know, get the chin down. So you gotta have that chin down.
Yeah.
So when you throwing that jab, just protect.
Okay.
You know, same thing when you throw the right. You know, so you jab, you jab, you jab. Somebody can't come over, hit you because this is blocked.
Okay.
You know,
So that so when you shadow boxing, you actually picturing
pitching somebody,
there.
you hitting somebody and you getting out of the way of that.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And see, the way I work the mitts, right? You know, some people work the mitts, they stand still and catch it,
Yeah.
right? But that's crazy
Uh-huh.
because ain't nobody gonna stand
Yeah,
still
yeah.
unless you hit them.
Right.
Yeah.
So the way I work them, you know, it's like I'm actually boxing. So I'm going forward, going backwards, going sideways, catching, slipping, punching at them. They slipping and coming with their punches. You know.
So I've seen that before, and
Mhm.
I've always wondered, is it like is it an orchestrated technique? So you do right, and then duck, or is it? Are they
You
swinging
call
and
the
you
shots.
actually? Huh?
You call the shot.
You call the shot. So
Right. So,
so
I
you
say,
can't get caught.
so I'm coming, jab, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
You know, uppercut. You know,
Yeah. Okay.
step around, boom, boom. You know.
Yeah. So it is. So it's a level of skill. I mean, you
Yeah.
have to know what you're doing.
Right.
In order to be.
And see, if you haven't been a boxer,
Yeah.
you know, you can't make the
Right.
move.
That's
You can't
yeah.
do it. You
I'll be
know,
up there looking like Bootney Farms.
Okay.
I'm doing like this.
I'll be like, what's that, Jimmy Walker in Uptown Saturday Night?
Oh
Do like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
See, a lot of people, there's an art to that too.
It's a beautiful
It's
thing. It's a
too.
beautiful thing.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let me ask you. You said with the boxer side when you're going through my speed bag, because I never realized how uncoordinated I was, Jackie.
Okay.
Until I tried to do a speed bag.
But see, you gotta get that rhythm. See, you get control of it. You hit it hard enough to keep control.
Okay.
So you hit it twice with one hand. Boom, 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 boom. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Right, and once you get the control of it, then you can speed up. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And, you know, it's just getting the control.
So it's a mental. You have to develop that mental skill.
Yeah,
to
you know,
be
the
coordinated,
concentration,
yeah.
to get it going. And,
Mhm.
you know, sometimes you can get fancy with it, you bang and boom, slide the elbow in.
Okay.
Boom, with the head, but you know, once you get that rhythm going, you can do a whole lot with it.
Wow.
And of course, the heavy bag is for body shots and.
Well, the heavy bag is working the technique too, because it's just like, say you jabbing, you practicing the jab, you stepping in with your body, making it hard, you know. What I'm saying, you know, if nobody never did it, how can you teach it?
True.
You know, and some trainers luck up, right, because they got a talented kid. But it's very hard for you to teach somebody something that you never done yourself. All right, I never boxed, right, but how can I tell you how I can feel good days, or what to do in a
Right.
good day?
Or to know when you see somebody days, be like,
Yeah.
come on, get back in there.
Or I
you
get
okay.
knocked down, you know, I'm looking like, get up.
And you haven't been there, so yeah, you don't understand
you know,
it. Yeah.
And you know, you just get a lot of people that luck up, and you know.
So you get a talented kid
Mm. They can follow instructions
that can follow instructions.
and able to steal moves and stuff from somebody else. You know?
See, but I think that might be a tragedy if you have
Yeah, trial and error is very
yeah,
discouraging.
Yeah.
talent but not
sometimes.
the right guidance.
Yeah.
Because you know, you might see some. I don't know how many boxers in history have had some stuff like that, but you know, you can't have one without the other. You know,
Right.
Custom Model trained Tyson.
But Augustin Model boxed before.
Yeah.
He'd been in the ring.
Yeah, we can do a whole story on Tyson because
Yeah.
that was a tragedy. The way.
Yeah, be kind of recovering. you
Yeah.
know.
But
But it's all about choices. You know, it wasn't like that he was around people that wasn't giving them the right choices, you know, or giving them ideas. See, you know, like they say, a fool with money, you know.
Oh yes.
But it's all about having the right crew around you,
Mhm.
people that believe in, not trying to steal from you, not trying to hurt you.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard.
It's
It's
tough.
kind of hard, you know.
Because you follow the instructions and you
Mhm.
trust in somebody. You
Right.
trust in this man with your career and your life, and not only that, the guidance. The man you say the man telling you to do something that you can't even see the benefit of, but you have to follow it.
Right.
Yeah.
And trust in sort of like was a Karate Kid, wax on, wax off,
Right.
and you realize that you done developed something.
And on certain levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Boxing is one of the dirtiest games out. It's a game that you have to love, especially when you see when you working with these kids, you become emotionally attached to them,
Mhm.
right?
Absolutely.
And you know, it makes it hard, especially when someone else is in their ears.
Right.
You know, you put all that time, effort, and work in them, and then next time you see them at a fight, they with somebody else. You wonder what happened to them, you know. But this person don't have the nerve to tell you, look, so and so's here. What you want me to do with it? Right? Then hey, you put all your time and effort in, they've gone somewhere else.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah, that's true, because there's no contracts or anything.
Yeah,
at that
not an
level.
amateur. You know, and you just gotta depend on the person being loyal.
Right.
You know, and you doing the right thing, and they understand that you're doing the right thing
Mhm.
for them. You know, because you know, I put a lot of time. I put 22 years of time in these kids. You know, and it's just something I love to do, and I have to take myself emotionally out of the picture sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it hurts you.
Yeah, but you develop relationships, so it's hard
Yeah.
to just separate yourself from it because they become your children
Yeah.
during the time that you have them.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, and we know more about them than their own people.
Right, right.
The deepest, darkest secrets.
Mhm.
Because I'm there when they're hungry, I'm there when they're scared, I'm there with all the dynamics
Relationship
in their life.
issues.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
you know,
right.
Giving them
Yeah.
advice, well, this is what you should do, you know.
Mhm.
Say if they have problems in school, I go up to the school and see what's going on, and, you know.
So just imagine, like, see that's such a positive influence in a child's life. Just imagine you had boxing programs
Mhm.
with coaches that like that, you know,
Yeah.
who I know they have football coaches and probably, you know, with the way these schools are funded, the football coach probably gonna be the boxing coach too.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Who just don't really know the sport, but
Yeah.
I just think it's just imagine if you had people.
But
you know,
see, there's a record of it being in school. It was in school before.
in Baltimore City.
In Baltimore.
In Baltimore City.
Okay.
Douglas, Carver, Dunbar.
The black schools.
Yeah, they had
How
boxing.
long ago was this?
Back in the 60s, 50s and
Okay.
60s. And you would even get a scholarship to go to college.
See,
Wow.
and that is no mistake because remember I told you about the golden age of boxing where
Mhm.
I was on the golden age, but
Mm.
For you, the
fif-
golden
60
age.
but no, 60s and 70s is when we dominated.
Mhm.
You know, where
Yep.
like from top to bottom, it was up.
Yeah.
You know, and look, at that time you had boxing in schools
Mhm.
because it was the way, it was a means.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Golden Gloves. You know what I mean? They still have those programs.
Yeah.
Golden
Yeah,
Gloves.
that's one of the oldest tournaments out.
Mm.
You know. It
But-
started in New York and Chicago.
Okay.
Mm.
But even in my community coming up, if you didn't play basketball or football, there was wrestling.
Right.
So I grew up in East Baltimore. You're probably familiar with John Murdoch. Everybody knew Murdoch, and he was kind of like everything for a lot of the guys coming up. You know, they probably wouldn't have had some of the opportunity if it wasn't for him. I
Right.
mean, even with my brothers, finding them jobs, they played sports.
Mhm.
When you have somebody like that in the community helping kids, it's an outlet for them. I think
Yeah.
a lot of those guys, well, some went to play professional football or basketball, and
Mhm.
even like my god brother received a scholarship to wrestle in Texas.
Mhm.
So we had outlets. I don't think that there are some of those same programs now like it was back then.
Well, there's a pipeline prison.
Yeah.
You know, if you take everything away, what else is going
What do you have? Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's unfortunate because I feel like there's money out here, and you educated me on some of that as far as grants, but there's still not a lot of programs.
Right.
So, if we didn't have Umar boxing, would the crime rate be higher?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
And that's the thing. We need more programs like that. So, interesting being able to go to the call to action meeting. I definitely thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
We learned that there are so many grant opportunities out here that people don't even know about.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody decides to start another boxing program, or maybe a karate program or something, and they're able to get grants, that's helping more kids come off the streets. So where do we start, and how do we organize these kind of programs?
Well, first of all, they
Sorry, I
don't-
kind of went on.
they don't want too many of them out there because they
Right.
don't want us helping the situation.
Right, and
Now,
that's
somebody like me, because I'm not as big as I should be,
right.
not no problem.
Yeah,
As soon as I do Umar East, Umar North, Umar South, making a big difference in the community,
you're a threat.
yeah, that's, you
Mhm.
know, we gotta cut
Right.
that funding a little bit. man.
So what is the fear? What do you think is the issue here? Is it
Well, only we can save us.
True.
If they give us the ammunition, they give us everything that we need, not even giving, it belongs to us.
Right.
I'm talking about give us. It belongs to us. We can change the scheme of things here in the city. Only we can do
But
See-
we're not fighting, and we have the financial power
it.
to fight. I always say this: with us having a $1.3 billion buying power,
Mhm.
we have the power. We're just not maximizing it.
Right.
We're taking our money out of the community.
Mhm.
That's where we're messing up. If we keep it in our community, we can empower our community, but we're
Mhm.
not doing that.
Yeah.
You know?
And then we allow these zombies to be around.
Yeah.
You know, I don't mean no harm, but we can get rid of them.
Yeah.
You know, because they kill themselves anyway.
Mhm.
So just let's help them out and just get them on out. And just start. If we don't get these kids between 6 and 10 years old, it's gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
Because that's the age bracket where they really get all the learning, where they
Mhm.
start to realize who they are to make decisions. Now, me doing this, I became sort of like an amateur psychiatrist or
Yeah.
therapist or whatever. You know,
But you're
because,
relatable though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, you know, see, they just don't realize, you know, how I feel, what I
Mhm.
think, and what I'm. And see, I still have my sons too to take care
Yeah.
of, my wife to look out for, you know. But my life is outside helping everybody,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah, it's in my household, you know, we had the fear of my father. I mean, I was the defiant one, but there was
Mhm.
still a certain level that I wouldn't go to,
Yeah.
you know. But for a lot of other families that didn't have the father in the home,
Mhm.
I think a lot of times the mom was overwhelmed and
Right.
probably working a lot.
Mhm.
So some kids they kind of ran wild because they didn't have that discipline.
Mhm.
But you could walk in my house when my dad was home and the entire house was quiet,
Mhm.
you know?
You could probably walk in his gym.
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah, ain't nobody gonna come in there all crazy.
Yeah, exactly,
You
because
know.
you know better. And,
Yeah.
and that's the thing, you know, I feel like with us having a lot of single parent homes, that these kids are not getting the necessary discipline
But see,
that they need.
here's my pick on that, right?
Mhm.
See, most of these boys, they grew up in that emotional atmosphere,
Right.
right? They seeing how their mother interact in their emotional state, and they pick up those same emotional qualities where they don't think before they do anything, and
Right.
it makes them very reactionary. You know, whereas though they had a man in their life say, hey, look, boy, see, every man in their life ain't good.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? But the ones that really care about them and want to put them on the right path, you know, he gonna tell them and do the right thing with them. But them boys growing up in that emotional situation, it makes them very, very reactionary.
Oh yes.
They don't think about anything until it's over, and then it's too late. You know, so that's why we try to have that man knowledge for these kids.
Mhm.
You know, especially the boys when they come in, because the girls need the same thing too.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned like, cause I'm trying to put my hand around this as far as the growth. You talked about the growth. Yeah. Sometimes the powers that be don't want us too big, but if you look at the byproducts of all of what you do, or what the sport of boxing,
Mhm.
for one, the discipline, perseverance, dealing with adversity, thinking,
Respect.
having a plan,
Yeah.
respect, sportsmanship.
Mhm.
What is the problem? You know, why not have it? Yeah, it can be perceived as, you know, barbaric. You know, but once you get past that, you know, wrestling's a rough sport as well.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And it is competition, it is physical contact. So
Football is a multi-billion-dollar sport.
Exactly.
And I don't want
So
my son
that's
playing
a
football.
that's
Right.
more of a
You're exactly
priority.
right.
Yeah.
I love football. I mean, I watch it every Sunday, right?
Concussions.
I don't want
Right.
I don't want my son playing football.
Mhm.
I wouldn't mind my son box.
Mhm.
You see what I mean? That shows you how much, you know, how respect, and I like the fact, you know, like what's happening with young kids in the community. Because if you have these little pockets, like a gym on the east, a gym on the west,
Mhm.
it's a fraternity.
Mhm.
You know, where these cats be like, oh yeah, you on Umar East, yeah, you from Umar West, you know, to get together, and it's fraternity, and then you got these guys with these values going out into the community,
Yeah.
making
And
a
it's-
difference.
That's right.
But what
Right.
happens is, if you in that scenario, then the prison industry is losing money.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so that's what it all comes down to.
I mean, everyone's afraid of, okay, now all the Baltimore City know how to box.
Well,
Yeah.
prison is big business right now,
Yeah,
and
obviously.
imprisoning us,
Yeah.
you know, is a big business.
But the fact that you mentioned that the Naval Academy, Yale, Harvard, Princeton has
Mhm.
boxing programs
Penn
on
State.
campus. Yeah, Penn State.
Yeah.
You know,
Citadel,
Yeah.
Georgetown,
Yeah, that's,
University of Maryland, College Park.
that's enough. That's enough validation for me that this needs to be not only in college level, but in high schools as well.
Right, but it starts with us. You know, we actually have to take our communities back, and you have to take your ego out of it. And I think that has a lot to do with why we don't have a lot of
Mhm.
programs. It's a lot of ego.
Mhm.
We have to be able to put our differences aside. You're not going to always agree with everybody that you work with, but you should be able to put that to the side to empower your community, and we're not doing that.
Because all of us in the business of saving lives.
Right.
Yeah. Whether it's different or not, we're still in the business of saving lives.
Exactly. And so why should it matter if it's a program over the east side or west side? You
Mhm.
know, we have to do this. We can't stand around and wait for somebody else to save us.
Right.
We have to do it.
But see, you know, when I first started my program, right, I was in the ocean all by myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, finding all kind of resources and everything. So I done stuck with it. Now, a program like mine would only last about 5 years. I got 22 years.
Yeah.
You know, now everybody's realizing that, hey, this guy been around here so long,
Right.
we got to find out what he's doing. You know, But you know, you just gotta have that adversity. You know that this is what you want to do. This is what is needed to be done. And you know, a lot of times I didn't know how in the world we was gonna survive, but we did. You know, and we still here, and it's still getting bigger and better and better.
Well, let me ask you this. You mentioned that you have people coming in from other countries and watching and observing your program. Do you ever get an opportunity for your kids to go other places and see different parts and
Not
see
yet.
different?
Not
That would
yet.
be really so that's something that you would be interested in.
Yeah, sure enough. And see, what I try to get people to realize is that I'm not just a boxing gym. I'm a boxing program. And program
Very well said.
have different aspects going on. Yeah. I'm not only stuck on boxing. I'm a program, right? And that means that I have other auspices of what's going on involved in my program. You know?
Very well put.
So coming to Umar, you're gonna get something that's gonna help you along in life. You know, we just try to just partner with everybody, you know, to give these kids different experience. Matter of fact, at the end of the school year, we take the kids out to dinner. You know, let them
that's
see
nice.
that we care.
That's really nice.
You know, and we have parties for them, you know,
That's
on
good.
birthdays, and you know, just let them see that hey, we love y'all.
How much of some of your graduates come back and help you out, man, or
Oh,
speak,
a lot of
or
them do.
speak on your behalf?
One of them was my nephew. You know, he's going for his master's, and he was a product of Umar, No Hooks Before Books. You know what I'm saying? He was with me. He got a twin brother. Him and his twin brother, they pretended they had asthma. You know? And they couldn't do that. You know, come on, get on out of here, man. Ain't no wrong with you. But he stuck with it, and it helped him, you know, get through school and the dedication and stuff
That's
like
awesome.
that. You know, and he graduated from Coppin, and he's, you know, he's back and getting his master's now. You know?
No
So the
hooks,
program worked. No hooks before
no
books.
hooks
Right.
before books.
And I don't know if you saw this, right? I've been saying this.
And how
for
come
a
you didn't
long
bring me a
time.
shirt?
Put the guns
Now that
down.
we're talking about it.
This sounds great, Christian. Let's say it again.
Put the guns down, put the gloves on.
I'm doing wrong. Put the guns down, put the gloves on. Up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been you know, before all this stuff became a problem, no hooks before books, and put the guns down, put the gloves up. I've been doing this for the past 22 years. Now they're just realizing that I have been a prevention the whole time. You know, and this is what they're talking about now. Put the guns
Right,
down.
right, right.
You know, and the education.
How does that make you feel, man?
Huh?
How does that make you feel knowing that you left you're not only making a difference, you leaving a legacy. You're a boxing you're a community legend. You're a pillar of the community. And the thing about it is, I always say things like, you never know who you influence. So you probably influenced a lot of people that you have no idea. What kind of satisfaction you get, you know, real talk. I mean, how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel that I'm kind of part of the solution instead of part of the problem.
Okay, solution instead of part of the problem.
Yeah. So, you know, I go to sleep real well. You know, I don't have no problem falling asleep because I felt that I'd done something that made a difference
Right.
in
You felt that
somebody's
you're
life.
doing. You ain't done. You're
Yeah.
doing something.
We're doing.
Yeah, get it right.
Yeah.
I can't hit you with a left hook, but you know,
Mhm.
get it right, man.
Yeah. So, you know, like, I just feel good.
Yeah, that's
You know, that I can say and talk about what I want because I'm doing something about it.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
You have all these naysayers out there. Yeah, man, I'm going to do this and do it. Nobody want to hear that. Do it.
Do it. Exactly.
Be like Nike. Just do it.
Just do
You know?
it.
So what's the future for you? When's the book coming out, man? Because you gotta get through
I
something.
know.
Yeah.
Before
You heard that
I
before?
get Alzheimer's. You know?
You heard that before?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you got.
I got about 3 books up in.
I can.
Okay.
I'm talking about. You know, just the
Yeah.
history. Yeah, I know. I can see
Yeah.
that.
Because
You
you know,
think you
like,
ever thought seriously about that?
Oh yeah, I have.
Okay.
I'm like the Forrest Gump of boxing. Seriously, I didn't seen and done
Yeah.
and met.
Mhm.
I'm saying.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah,
Forrest
it's
Gump.
like.
Crossed a lot of paths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You met a lot of
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
And it's amazing, because when I look back on it, like even some of the pictures that I have, I met boxing historian Bert Sugar.
Oh.
Wow.
I got a picture with him, man, and hugged up.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Hopkins, you met him?
Well,
Bernard Hopkins.
yeah, Bernard Hopkins. I didn't get a picture with him.
Y'all kind of look. I wouldn't say you resemble because you look a lot better than Bernard Hopkins. But I'm just saying you kind of
You
remind
remember
me of him.
what was his name? The White Muhammad Kwawi.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do.
I got pictures with him. He's originally from Baltimore, but his family moved up in Camden. They used to call him Camden Buzzsaw. He's back here in Baltimore training fighters now.
Wow.
I can't wait to tell my dad. Man. I mean, because you dropping names, like I said,
Mhm.
you're dropping names that it's.
Matter of fact, check this out.
Mhm.
What's his name? Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker.
Yes.
Mhm.
Right.
Virginia Beach.
I was on the same team with him back in 1980. Right. I had won the regional USA championship, and he had one in the lightweight division. And
They said he was pound for pound the best.
Yeah.
He got that.
he was good.
Mhm.
He was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a sparring partner for like 3 weeks. Did some sparring with Simon Brown. Was a sparring partner for about 2-3 weeks.
Wow.
Kenny Bazemore. It's just that I've been around.
Yeah.
I've been around, and a lot of people say, "Well, you've done all that. Why are you still here?" Because I want to be.
Mhm.
All right, so what city got the baddest fighters, man? I mean, so arguably you say for Philly used to have a good tradition, but
Well, Washington D.C.
wow.
Okay.
Baltimore,
Of course.
Philly, New York, Detroit.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Tommy Ernst from Detroit, right?
yeah.
Yeah, Crown
Yeah.
Gym.
But I'm saying it's been spreading out.
Mhm.
Alabama got Deontay Wilder. Arkansas got you got Dwayne Taylor. What's it? Omaha, Nebraska got Terrence Crawford.
Nebraska, okay.
I'm saying it's getting around. It's getting
Yeah,
around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the future looking bright though. I mean,
yeah,
with some of these
definitely.
youth programs.
Yeah.
Like I said, for those out there, I mean, boxing ain't about getting hit or fighting and stuff like that. Really, the main thing with boxing, I'm glad you brought that, you made that evident, is preparation. Before you even step foot in the ring,
Mhm.
it's a whole process that needs to be followed from the education and preparation.
The art of boxing is hitting and not getting hit.
Right. Right.
That's the whole premise.
Or
A lot
learning
of
how to
people forget
fight
about that.
so you don't have to fight.
Right,
Right.
right. So, I just try to make it simple because it's an unfounded stereotype.
Mhm.
Especially in boxing, a lot of people can't differentiate professional boxing and amateur boxing.
Okay, so what is the difference?
Amateur boxing is very safe.
Yeah, with a headgear and all
Okay.
that
With the
stuff.
headgear, mouthpiece, the gloves that
Mhm.
absorb the shot and not
Mhm.
give off shot. The amateur program is very good, very good. And the size of the gloves. See, when you're a professional fighter, you have on 8-ounce, 9-ounce gloves, But in the amateurs, you got 12 and 14-ounce gloves.
Mhm.
So heavier gloves.
Yeah,
So why is that safer?
the shock. Take the shock
Okay.
off.
Interesting. Okay. So you more fan of amateur versus pro or?
Well, I'm for boxing all around,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
I love the amateur boxing, build up to it. And there's some stuff I can tell you about the pro stuff. I'm not even gonna get into that.
That'll be on
That's when we
another
have
show.
you come back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell them where they can find you one more time.
My phone number is 410-808-1964. That's myself. The gym number is 410-728-3600. Website, nohooksbeforebooks.org.
Okay.
Email, Marvin McDowell87@gmail.com.
And the program is No Hooks Before Books, y'all. It's Google it, easy to find. If you guys want more information,
We'll
man,
post it in our group.
such a treat.
Yeah.
One of the best programs that you ever want to get your kid into, because it's handled by real boxers that actually got hit on.
That's right. Teach your kids how to fight so they don't have to fight.
Right.
There's a respect.
Right.
And like I said, the byproduct of it is discipline, perseverance, all the things that quality that men, not just black men, but men need to be pillars of their community.
And I
really
have a
appreciate it.
saying, put the guns down, put the gloves up, take the beats off the streets, and the boxing gyms, we all gonna win. Let's work it out.
Yeah.
Wow. You
Wow.
got that on? You got
Trademark.
that? Did you trademark too?
I gotta do that
Gotta
too.
do that, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. So this was such a treat having Umar Marvin McDowell on the show. Legendary, yes.
Get it right.
Because we didn't really get to talk about that, but I mean, yes, he's an inductee in the Merlin Hall of Fame, the Merlin's Boxing Hall of Fame.
And here's my
So,
ring.
Yes, he has his ring. Wait a minute, let me get that ring.
Yeah.
Hold up. Yes. That's a big deal.
I had my good time in the amateurs.
Mhm.
And that same
That's a
fist,
big deal.
that same fist is registered as a lethal weapon.
A lethal weapon, yes.
Not when I was using it.
Yeah.
So are you ever gonna retire?
No.
Yeah.
As long as I can get up and down that step,
Yeah.
I'll be there to do it. And even from a wheelchair, hey, look, you gotta keep your hands up.
You see?
You just let me know when that book is coming out.
We're
Because
there.
like I said, it's just, you just memorize something, man.
Yeah.
Because your legacy needs to be told. Your legacy needs to endure. Your legacy is already evident. You don't have, but it's you have some really so interesting, and just the stories at all about not only the business, but
Yeah,
but
definitely.
the background as well. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all for having me.
Oh, you're welcome to come back anytime.
And I'm gonna go and do some sit-ups. So
You're gonna do some sit-ups.
Yeah,
Don't hurt yourself. We're going to boxercise.
Work on my core.
So we will see you all next week, same time, same place. And this show, I'll actually send you the show because I'll upload it on YouTube and send it to you so you can share it. Thank you so much for coming on, and we'd love to have you come back.
I
Yeah.
love